Me, I like it here just fine. I don't see no call for me to move on. Dump's been my home now in 20 years, and I don't think no highfalutin city sanitation law should make me have to pack up and move on. If I'm gonna work here, I ought to be able to live here. Me and Otto, where is that sucker anyway? I let him wander about some on Sundays. Rest of the time, I keep him chained inside the hut there out of sight. I wouldn't want him biting folks. As I was saying, the dump's my home. Best damn home I ever had. I'm not a college man, but I got some education. I read a lot. Ought to look inside that shack and see my bookshelves. I may be a dump yard supervisor, but I'm no fool. Besides, there's more to this dump than meets the eye. Excuse me. Otto. Otto, here, boy. Come on. Dad, burn his hide. He's gotten bad about not coming when I call. Now, as I was saying about the dump, there's more here than meets the eye. You ever thought about all that garbage, boy? They bring anything and everything here, and dozer under. There's animal bodies. That's one of the things that interests old Otto. Paint cans, all manner of chemical containers, lumber and straw, brush, you name it. I doze all that stuff under, and it heats up. If you could put a thermometer under the earth and check the heat that stuff puts out while it's breaking down and turning to compost, it would be up there, boy, way up there, sometimes over 100 degrees. I've plowed that stuff open and seen the steam flow out like a cloud. I could feel the heat of it. It was like being in one of them fancy baths, saunas they call them. Hot, boy, real hot. Now, you think about it, all that heat, all those chemicals and dead bodies and such. It makes an awful mess, a weird blend of nature's refuse, real weird. And with all that incubating heat, well, you consider it. I'll tell you something I ain't told nobody else. Something that happened to me a couple years ago. All right. One night, me and Pearlie, that was a friend of mine, and we called him that on account of he had the whitest teeth you ever seen. Darn things looked painted. They were so white. Let's see, now where was I? Oh, yeah. Me and Pearlie, well, we were sitting around out here one night shooting the breeze, was sharing a pint. Pearlie, he used to come around from time to time, and we'd always split a bottle. He used to be a legit old-time hobo, rode the rails all over this country. Well, I reckon he was going on 70 years, if not better, but he acted 20 years younger. He'd come around and we'd talk and sit and snort and roll us some of that Prince Albert, which we'd smoke. We had some good laughs, we did, and I miss old Pearlie sometimes. So that night, we let the bottle leak out pretty good. And Pearlie, he's telling me about this time down in Texas in a boxcar with a river trash whore. And he stops in mid-sentence right at the good part. And he says, "You hear that?" And I said, "I don't hear nothing. Go on with your story." He nodded and told the tale, and I laughed. And he laughed. He could laugh better at his own stories and jokes than just about anybody I'd ever seen. After a bit, Pearlie gets up and walks out beyond the firelight to relieve himself, And he comes back right quick, zipping up his fly and walking as fast as them old stiff legs of him will take him. "There's something out there," he says. "Sure," I say, "armadillos, coons, possums, maybe a stray dog." "No," he says. "Something else." "Oh, I've been a lot of places, boy," he says. He always called me boy on account of I was 20 years younger than he was. "And I'm used to hearing critters walk about. That don't sound like no damn possum or stray dog to me, but something bigger." I start to tell him that he's full of it, and then I hear it too. In a stench like you wouldn't believe floats into camp here. A stench like a grave opened up on a decomposing body, one full of maggots and the smell of earth and death. It was so strong I got a little sick, what with all the rot gut in me, and Pearlie says, "You hear it?" And I did. It was the sound of something heavy crunching down that garbage out there and moving closer and closer to the camp, like it was afeard of the fire, you know. I got the heebie-jeebies, and I went to the hut there, and I got my double barrel. And when I came out, Pearlie had pulled a little old 32 Colt out of his waistband and a brand from the fire, and he was heading out there in the dark. "Wait a minute," I called. "You just stay put, boy. I'll see to this, and I'll see that whatever it is gets a hole in it, maybe 6. So I waited, and the wind picked up, and that horrible stench drifted in again. Very strong this time, strong enough so I puked up that hooch I'd drunk. And then suddenly, from the dark, while I'm leaning over, throwing my guts out on the ground, I hear a shot. Another one. Another. I get up. I start calling for Pearlie. "Stay the hell where you are," he called. "I'm coming back." Another shot. And then Pearlie seemed to fold out of the darkness and come into the light of the fire. "What is it, Pearlie?" I said. "What is it?" Pearlie's face was as white as his teeth. He shook his head. I ain't never seen nothing like it. Listen, boy, we got to get the hell out of Dodge. That sucker, it's..." He let his voice trail off, and he looked towards the darkness beyond the firelight. "Come on, Pearlie, what is it?" "I tell you, I don't know. I couldn't see real good with that there firebrand, and it went out before too long. I heard it down there, crunching around over there by that big hill of garbage." I nodded. That was a pile I had heaped up with dirt for a long time. I intended to break it open next time I dozed, put some new stuff in there with it. It was coming out of the pile," Pearlie said. "It was wriggling like a great gray worm, but there were legs all over it, fuzzy legs, and the body. It was jelly-like, lumber and fence wire, all manner of crap was sticking out of it like it belonged there, just as natural as a shell on a turtle's back or the whiskers on a cougar's face. It had a mouth, a big mouth, like a railway tunnel, and what looked like teeth. But the brand went out then. I fired some shots. It was still wriggling out there in the garbage heap. It was too dark to stay here." He cut in mid-sentence. The smell was strong now, solid as a wall of bricks. "It's moving into camp," I said. "Must have come from all that garbage," Pearlie said. "Must have been born in all that heat and slime. Or come up from the center of the earth," I said, though I figured Pearlie was a mite near closer to right. Pearlie put some fresh loads in his revolver. "This is all I got," he said. I want to see it eat buckshot," I said. Then we heard it, very loud, crunching down those mounds of garbage like they was peanut holes. And then there was silence. Pearlie, he moved back a few steps from the double barrel towards the shack. I aimed the double barrel toward the dark. Silence went on for a while. Why, you could have heard yourself blink, but I wasn't blinking. I was watching out for that critter. Then I heard it, but it was behind me. I turned just in time to see a fuzzy-like tentacle slither out from behind the shack and grab old Pearlie. He screamed, and the gun fell out of his hand, and from the shadows a head showed, a huge, worm-like head with slitted eyes and a mouth large enough to swallow a man, which is what it did. Pearlie didn't make that thing 2 gulps. Wasn't nothing left of him but a scrap of flesh hanging on that thing's teeth. I emptied a load of buckshot at it. I slammed the gun open, loaded her again. By that time, it was gone. I could hear it crashing off in the dark. I got the keys to the dozer and walked around back of the shack on tiptoe. It didn't come out of the dark after me. I cranked the dozer, turned on the spotlights, and went out there after it. It didn't take long to find it. It was moving across the dump like a snake, slithering and looping as fast as it could go, which wasn't too fast right then. It had a lump in its belly, an undigested lump. Poor old Pearlie. I ran it down, pinned it to the chain link fence on the far side of the dump, used my dozer blade to mash it up against it. I was just fixing to gun the motor and cut that sucker's head off when I changed my mind. Its head was sticking up over the blade, those slitted eyes looking at me, and there, buried in that worm-like face, was the face of a puppy. You get a lot of them here. Well, it was alive now. That head was still mashed in like the first time I saw it, but it was moving. The head was wriggling right there in the center of that worm's head. I took a chance and I backed off from the thing. I dropped to the ground and didn't move. I flashed the lights over it. Pearlie was seeping out of that thing. I don't know how else to describe it, but he seemed to be drifting out of that jelly-like hide. And when his face and body were halfway out of it, he stopped moving and just hung there. I realized something then. It was not only created by the garbage and the heat, it lived off of it. And whatever became its food became a part of it. That puppy and old Pearlie were now a part of it. Now, don't misunderstand me. Pearlie, he didn't know nothing about it. He was alive in a fashion. He moved and squirmed. But like that puppy, he no longer thought. He was just a hair on that thing's body. Same as the lumber and wire and such that stuck out of it. And the beast, well, it wasn't too hard to tame. I named it Otto. It ain't no trouble at all. Getting so it don't come when I call, but that's on account I ain't had nothing to reward it with until you showed up. Before that, I had to kind of help it root dead critters out of the heap. Sit down. I've got Pearlie's 32 there, and if you move, I'll plug you. Oh, here comes Otto now.